Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really critical concept. We're looking at the cascading, real-world impacts of global warming. We hear about this topic all the time, right? But usually it's discussed in the abstract. Today, we're breaking it down into a highly structured, interconnected chain of events. We're going to look at exactly how this phenomenon doesn't just hit our environment, but literally shakes the very foundation of our global economy. Let's get right into it. To make sure we're all on the exact same page, let's start by defining global warming directly from our source material. It's an increase in the average temperature of the Earth, resulting from the emission of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide. Basically, these gases act like a giant invisible blanket, trapping the heat of the sun right here in our atmosphere. And, as we'll see today, this trapped heat triggers a massive, completely unstoppable domino effect across the whole planet. Okay, let's dive into this four-step journey. We'll be covering 1. Effects of global warming. 2. Glacier melting and water supply. 3. Sea level and land loss. 4. Human migration and species extinction. And 5. Temperature shifts and food security. Part 1. Glacier melting and water supply. Let's start with the very first domino in this chain reaction, way up at the highest altitudes on Earth. What's truly wild about this is how it highlights a slow-moving yet totally devastating crisis. Thanks to global warming, the world's glaciers are retreating and melting away year after year. Now, these aren't just pretty blocks of ice for tourists to look at, they're essentially massive frozen reservoirs. As the Earth's average temperature takes up, the delicate balance keeping them frozen is completely broken, so they disappear, and when they vanish, they take critical, life-sustaining water supplies right along with them. To really wrap your head around the scale of this, think about the huge ice systems in the Himalayas, in Mongolia, and the Alps. As these specific glaciers vanish, they essentially rob critical water supplies from heavily populated dry regions downstream, places like Western China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. We're literally talking about millions of people whose daily survival depends almost entirely on the seasonal meltwater from these exact glaciers. But, it's not just about human drinking water, as crucial as that is. The loss of these glaciers fundamentally wrecks the entire ecosystem of these regions. The plants, the animals, the natural habitats that took thousands of years to adapt to that predictable glacial flow, they're suddenly left completely high and dry. The entire biological foundation of these environments just gets pulled out from under them. Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds: sea level and land loss. We're going to follow that melted ice all the way down to the oceans. Now, as global warming pushes ocean levels higher, which happens from the melting ice, sure, but also from the actual thermal expansion of the warming water itself, we're not just looking at higher high tides. We're talking about the permanent flooding of low-lying wetlands and coastlines. Land that was totally usable, where a huge chunk of the global population lives and works, literally just becomes part of the ocean. Gone. This coastal destruction is severe. We're talking permanent flooding of wetlands, outright loss of land, and massive coastal erosion. But remember, our source is looking at this through an economic lens too. Losing this coastal land is a direct attack on the livelihoods of everyone in these areas. Farms flood with saltwater, coastal businesses are washed away, and local economic life is just entirely disrupted. Which brings us to part 3. Human migration and species extinction. Because, well, when you lose the land you live on, you really only have one choice left. The text is incredibly clear on this point. Permanent flooding of the coasts leads to huge population displacement. I mean, people can't live underwater, right? So we are inevitably going to see a massive migration away from coastal areas. Entire communities, towns, maybe even parts of cities will be forced to pack up and head inland. And you can imagine the incredible logistical and economic pressures that puts on the regions having to take them in. And while humans can pack a bag and move, nature doesn't have it so easy. Driven by shifting climate zones, changes in vegetation, rising sea levels, and those flooded coasts, plants and animals desperately try to redistribute themselves to survive. They have to chase the climates they're actually adapted to, but a lot of them just can't move fast enough. Because of that rapid shift, the text points out these exact drivers are pushing us toward major species extinction. Now for part 4, temperature shifts and food security. Because all these environmental dominoes eventually converge on one terrifying threat to our daily survival: agriculture. And this brilliantly illustrates the chaotic nature of it all. It's not just a nice, even warming everywhere. Global temperature changes disrupt weather patterns wildly. Some places will see a dramatic increase in rainfall, flooding fields and washing away crops. Meanwhile, other areas get hit with severe drought and meager rainfall, turning the soil to dust. These extreme, polar opposite weather shifts are a direct hit on our ability to reliably grow food. Let's actually walk through the source's step-by-step process of how this degrades our food supply. Step 1. Global temperature changes disrupt regional weather. Step 2. Those erratic climates, especially the sudden heavy rains, cause severe soil erosion, literally washing away the topsoil we need for farming. Step 3. This altered rainfall damages natural vegetation. Step 4. Thanks to bad soil and chaotic weather, agricultural production drops, which leads us to Step 5. Global food security is fundamentally threatened. So the crucial takeaway here is captured perfectly in this quote from the text. Depletion of the stock of natural resources and degradation of the environment should be treated as the cost of development. Historically, we've chased economic growth without worrying too much about the long-term bill. But the source argues that a melted glacier or a flooded coastline isn't just a sad environmental tragedy, it is a hard economic cost. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. The text asserts that if we want to know our true economic growth, these environmental costs actually have to be deducted from our national income. So if we're destroying our water supplies, losing our coasts, displacing populations, and threatening global food security just to produce more goods, what does this domino effect mean for our true rate of economic growth? Are we actually developing, or are we just borrowing from the future? It's a powerful question that totally reframes how we look at global warming moving forward. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this provided a clear, structured look into the very real costs of global warming.